presiding officer over the Library Board of Trustees. In consideration of others and the business conducted tonight, please silence your phones and any electronic devices and refrain from speaking unless recognized. Again, this is a public meeting for the community of Glendora, and we appreciate and respect your participation here this evening. I would like to request that oral roll call be conducted.
Thank you. I would like to announce for the record, on February 18, Trustee Cintron submitted her resignation to the City Clerk's office, and City Clerk's staff is currently working on a recruitment to fill the unscheduled vacancy. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each trustee respond with present when their name is called. Trustee Chu?
Present.
Trustee Landman?
Present.
Vice President Tolan?
Present.
President Johnson?
Present.
Let the record show all trustees are present.
Would someone like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will.
Thank you.
Please stand, put your hand over your heart. They begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does anyone wish to reorder or add anything to the agenda? I would like to invite members of the public to address. Do we have anybody here to offer public comments?
We do not.
So I would like to close the public comment period. So I would like to invite, is it? Yes. So you'd like to speak?
So at this time, we will be doing board members' reports.
Well, it's not really like a report, but it was a question about, you had said that Trustee Cintron had resigned on the 18th. When does the paperwork need to be turned in by anybody who's interested in applying? And do they just go to the website to find the application?
They can go on our city website under the committees, and then the applications are available online. And then we will be publishing a notice for the unscheduled vacancy as well.
And when do they need to get the application in by? Do you know?
We are working on a day, and we will have further
Oh, okay.
information, but the information will be available on our city's website, and it should be under public notices.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're welcome.
And report from Trustee Toland.
Thank you, President Johnson. I attended the Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation quarterly board meeting on January 28th on behalf of the board. I wanted to note a couple of things. One is Night on the Plaza is July 12th. It's going to be 25 years celebration, so it's going to be a very large event. That's coming up, so mark your calendars. And the other item was they have 3 new board members, Craig Henderson, Robin Merkley, and Lindsay Wilson. They'll all be serving as board members through the year end. That's it.
And Trustee Landeman would like to add.
Sorry. And then also I wanted to add that March 7th will be the Great Trivia Challenge, and it will be over at Foothill Christian School on Baseline. And it's always a fun event. Plus they have the In-N-Out truck and little opportunity baskets, and it's a fun time. And also I wanted to mention too that over at Bidwell Forum, On February 28th, there's going to be the, oh no, I forgot the official title, but like prestigious women of Glendora thing. And former trustee Doris Blum will be there along with other people. And my friend's grandma's getting honored, Sally Rand. So that's really cool. So the family's all excited. So that's on the 28th, 4 to 6.
Excellent. Any other additions to the reports? So at this time, I would like to invite Library Director Janet Stone to share.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's good to be back with you all. As usual, there is a printed report in the packet. It is available for the public online and, of course, available for all of you. And as usual, I will just be offering a few updates to that printed report here live tonight. So I'm going to start out with actually the stats summary, the statistical summary that follows the bullet-pointed report. I just wanted to share that we are in the process of separating out different kinds of statistics for consistency within the groups of them. Sometimes it disrupts the consistency across time, but when we discover we've been reporting on things as if they are similar and they really are different kinds of numbers, we try to pull them apart so that we're not claiming apples and oranges are the same kinds of things. So among those things that you'll see shifting over recent months are things like the, excuse me, the early learning computer uses, that shows up as the AWE computers. Some of the volunteer match stuff is changing, and I just wanted to mention that some of those changes were made last month, not this month, as indicated on the sheet, and we'll be getting that addressed. However, I want to take a side note to say that the volunteer match opportunity views have greatly increased recently because of our staff outreach related to the volunteer match project that we are working on. So each staff member has been assigned to be a concierge to different agencies in town to get their opportunities online, and you'll see some really nice increases there. Some other things I wanted to mention, you'll see that the app page views show a decrease for January of 2025, but that's because January 2024 was an outlier, and actually this number is actually more in line with what we usually have been reporting. I did also want to confirm that the web page views are indeed still unavailable, and our digital media team is working on that. I also just wanted to confirm that we indeed did not do any social media PR specifically this particular January. However, in terms of marketing, it came up last time that there's some interest in understanding how we break down the marketing that we already do. And we have been working behind the scenes since the last meeting to pull together some numbers for you for that. There isn't much more behind the scenes that we collect specifically broken down than what you see in the summary. However, one thing we can do is share some of the funding pools that we have dedicated to marketing. And we had a draft, but realized actually it didn't capture everything. So we're bringing that back next month when it can be more comprehensive. And finally, the publications produced in the statistical summary in January 2024, that included our constant contact emails, and we're actually we're pulling those out separately and reporting out now, as you see it, on the actual numbers that are opened. So it's changes like that over the year that may look like things are dropping, or and a lot of it is because we are grouping them together differently, or we're being more accurate on reporting what the community is actually using rather than what we are producing. So I'm happy, before I continue with a couple of other updates with the rest of the report, are there any questions about the statistics? Okay, great. Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, for the app, do we have the ability to look into like more detailed stats for the app? Like how many people are using it to search books? How many people are looking at the calendar? Like, do we know what features in the app are being used the most, because maybe that can give us some insights on like what exactly the community wants. Just out of curiosity.
I love that question. Yes, so Library Services Manager Cindy Romero can help address that tonight.
So we have not collected the statistics in that way in the past, but we can do it, we can collect them based on which page views they're viewing. So we can break it down further, we just haven't done it yet, as yet. And we have the ability to go back historically.
Okay.
So we can do it over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Usually when we run the reports, it's only for the last
Yeah.
month, but we can break it down a little bit more. We can look at that for next month.
Yeah, it might be worth looking at like quarterly or something. It doesn't have to be like every month. Yeah. Do we know how many users we have? Wait, this is total views, but we don't know how many unique users there are.
Unique users, no. I think we average about 700 users a month on the app, and that could be repeat users. I don't know if I can look at unique users or not, but we'll take a look at it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't know how helpful it would be, but it might be worth looking at. Yeah,
We'll take a look and let you know what we can yet.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other statistics questions before a couple of other updates? Okay. I wanted to mention about the packet as a whole, that you will see what are, for all intents and purposes, sort of blank staff reports in there where there are a lot of non-applicable fields. And I just wanted to mention that that's an artifact of the excellent city clerk's team having to use 2 different systems at the same time and transfer the data from how the packet is created into how it's provided for the meeting. And there's still a lot of details to be worked out with that process. So cheers to them for making it happen at all. And like I said, that's just an artifact, and we know it's there, and we'll be looking at what the options are for that. Last month, we mentioned the concept of the quote-unquote no return collection. These are types of, in past years, I suppose they might have been known as library giveaways. No return collections is how they're referred to sometimes. And there was a question, I believe, about what jurisdictions were exploring that. So I went back to the American Libraries article where we recently read about this, and the ones that they mention are San Francisco, Ames, Iowa, Brooks, Massachusetts, and Saratoga Springs, New York. So just wanted to make sure I answered that question. And finally, about this time of year, usually we start discussing meeting jointly with the city council. And as you know, in recent years, there's been a lot of discussion with council and with city administration because of the state of the library building. So, but that doesn't mean we need to, we don't want to drop that idea of that opportunity for the 2 bodies to meet together. So I wanted to make sure I checked in with you a little bit about that. First of all, and this I also have touched base with the city manager. So at the council meeting tomorrow night, just as kind of a lead into this, there will be the mid-year update. And at that time, among many, many other things, at the mid-year update, they will be reminding the council about the lack of funding for the significant structural repairs, not just at the library, but through a lot of city facilities. So that's happening immediately tomorrow night. And then they're anticipating, although that agenda hasn't been finalized yet, a general conversation with the city council about the state of the city's facilities and funding options on March 11th. So that's when that will be going back to council. And they will be covering, they expect, previous conversations that have already happened, reviewing that, reviewing the current needs and sort of the financial and tax measure landscape. And they will, whenever they take that to council, presumably on the 11th, they will be looking for recommendations from council. It's about, 50 million or more that are needed for just current repairs and maintenance, just status quo on existing facilities together throughout the city. And it's over 200 million for new and upgraded facilities throughout those throughout the combined facilities. So It's likely, although, we can't predict exactly where the discussion will go with council, but among things that may be discussed would be something like a facilities bond, which of course you're familiar with that discussion already, and the idea of a voter initiative to move forward. The voter initiative, as you may remember, would require 50% plus one to pass, whereas a city-sponsored initiative would be 2/3. So those are among the things that they're expecting to go back to council with on March 11th. And I'm sure, depending on how that conversation goes, it will become clearer whether or not and/or when the next appropriate joint meeting would be between the board and the council, because obviously I think there's some conversation there that has to happen first. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't, lose that yearly reminder that that's an important meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the directors and departments and divisions report.
Any questions? No questions at this time. And now I would like to invite Library Services Manager Donna Dukes up to present. Am I right? Yeah?
I think we are on number 3, which is the conference.
Oh, you're
opportunity.
still, okay.
Yeah, sorry, I
You're
know,
from
It's a lot, it's a
Janet's.
lot of Janet, I'm sorry. It won't,
3 in a row, all right.
it won't all be Janet, but.
Okay.
So apologies for that. Let's see here, let us move toward, okay. So one of the things that we agendize for you yearly, not as a point of business, but just as a report to make sure everybody's aware, is just a review of the trustee opportunities to connect, to learn, and develop training and conference opportunities. So I'm going to start this time with just a little bit about news and clearinghouses. And really the main thing here is just a reminder that this California Public Library Trustees Toolkit does exist. It's on the California State Library website. It's pretty easy to find if you Google it, but there's also a link here that's live online. And there are several pieces to it, including this collection of learning resources. So this is a great place to return. A lot of what I'm about to cherry pick for you tonight is actually already in here. So if you ever just need to go back to a clearinghouse, the trustee toolkit is a great place to go. This includes California Public Library advocates serving with the purpose, and other academies and that sort of thing with links. So a couple of things about the listings there, and some of this language comes directly from the toolkit itself. Just a reminder that the resources throughout the toolkit are not legal advice, and you should always consult. And in this case, we recommend in Glendora that you start with the library director, and then we can connect you with legal or whoever would need to be from there. But we can help with the context locally. Local context also impacts the videos that are linked to in some of these documents, because some of them are developed by other states, and they have slightly different laws. So although they're great for conceptual things, when you are looking for specifics, legal specifics, again, they may not apply to California. And if you start with the library director, I or whoever's in that chair can help you clarify. So that's just wanted to remind you, that is a great starting place if you ever need to find this information again. One of the things that is listed there offers these opportunities for live, but online, or you could see them recorded opportunities for training. And this is on that list. They're called United for Libraries. They're a division of the American Library Association. And among other things, because there's a lot that they do offer a monthly webinar series. So again, it's pretty easy to Google, but there are also live links in the report that's available online. And you can take a look and see each month what sorts of things they are offering to all different kinds of supporters of public libraries. That includes trustees as well as friends and foundation groups. And then finally, just a few things about live and in-person opportunities. This is really sort of the impetus for for doing this at this time of year is the Serving with a Purpose Conference. And it is upcoming in May. And just, reach out to Gabby as usual if you're interested in registration. Early Bird is now open for this conference. May 15th. The schedule, there are some sections of it that are still to be announced, but a couple of their speakers include one who is an organizational studies and education and business expert, and according to their website, he examines the processes that shape people's sense of belonging and self-concept and the role that these processes play in various social problems, and he and others have developed concrete science-backed strategies to create more welcoming spaces for people from all walks of life. So that's one of the speakers that's listed there. And the other is a mystery writer. His protagonist is Cork O'Connor, so you can come and hear him. And then I said several of the other slots are still to be announced. Then, of course, the professional associations have a pretty active conference life, especially as we found out in calendar year 2024. The Public Library Association actually meets on its own every other year. In 2024, they were in Columbus. In 2025, they will be meeting as part of the American Library Association Conference. In 2024, we were really lucky here in Southern California because American Library Association, or ALA, was in San Diego, and the California Library Association, or CLA, was in Pasadena. This year, ALA is in Philadelphia. However, somewhat unexpectedly, California Library Association is back in Southern California again, in Riverside, a tiny bit farther than Pasadena, but not a lot farther. And so there's an opportunity for the trustees to explore their offerings once again. And we have started the conversation with CLA and with the city about how to budget for another all-staff development day there. So we're really excited about that. So as always, if you are interested in any of the opportunities, reach out to Gabby and me, and we will set you on the right path for that. Any questions about any of those opportunities?
Is that okay?
Oh, yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just have a question. If we were interested in attending two conferences, if we could do two,
Not a problem.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Not Philadelphia, but,
Yeah, yeah. Yes, if you choose one, perhaps in Prague, we might, have something to discuss. But the Southern California ones, we're happy to have you go.
I was wondering for the Serving with the Purpose, for the 2 times that I've gone, I noticed that there's always a lot of foundation members, Friends Foundation people going. And I was wondering if we advertise this to the Friends Foundation too, so that their members could also go, because I think it's super benefit. There's a lot of sessions just for friends of the library. Yeah.
I certainly have passed it along to them in the past. I will, and so I have to admit, I've sort of assumed that they are on the mailing list because I have, but I will make sure to send it again just in case it's not on their radar for some reason. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that.
And to add to what Brianna just said, I think it's extremely enlightening, informative, and inspiring to even just go and see what's out there and offered at libraries, regardless of your role in a library. So if you're a Friends Foundation member, just walking through the vendors at ALA is extremely educational. So not just that convention, but ALA would be great if they would want to go.
Thank you. Yes, I will make sure I can send them this whole package.
That would be great.
That's a great idea. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
And so are we on to agenda item 4? And we will again hear more from Director Janet Stone.
I promise it's not, you'll hear another voice soon. Okay. Let's see here. So last month you heard us report out sort of budget style on the first half of the fiscal year. And we always try to alternate or pair that with a look at what is essentially the same information, but organized by our strategic framework. So these are considered our strategic responses. Again, a lot of the information is similar, but this is organized in a different approach toward the public and toward what it is that we are doing to serve them. And now we will be looking back from basically the writing of the report back to the beginning of July. So first of all, I always want to make time to thank the Friends Foundation. In the director and division reports, we note with specific symbols all of the things that they directly contribute to. We don't do that here, but you can see all of that in the monthly reports. In this case, we just want to acknowledge at the beginning of this update how integrated they are in so many of these opportunities for the public, and just how grateful we are for supporting the community by supporting the library. Okay, the first of our framework responsibilities is that the world of ideas needs to be where the users are. These, in other languages, we call these our proximity services, the idea being that we are, physical beings and we need to be nearby the data or the information or the ideas. So what wins have we had since the beginning of this fiscal year? Here's just a few of them listed. I want to point out that these range from small and intimate memory-making ones, like the stuffed animal sleepover, where we had 19 children, to really bustling ones, like the historic model train, where we had 200 attendees. So they come in all shapes and sizes, and make a lot, this idea of, people getting to connect in the library building itself. So we also have connections outside of the library building, out where the community members are. And, these range up to the library connecting with people, for example, at the Halloween walk, a whopping 1,500 times we interacted with folks at the Halloween walk. One thing I wanted to point out this year is that we are strengthening the connection between these forays out into the community, being where the community is, and the ability to connect the community then even broader to other opportunities in the region. So for example, a couple of these were connected with a giveaway to the Da Vinci exhibit, tickets for the Da Vinci exhibit, and also for to go see the corpse flower at the Huntington. So we're trying to make sure that not only are we out with the community, but then they have opportunities to get out even beyond Glendora and experience the world of ideas. Okay, some other ways we do this is whether we are they or, excuse me, I skipped ahead to a different slide where we connect people with live expert speakers. This is specifically the online expert speakers series. And already this year, just in this, for these online opportunities alone, we've had over 1,600 views. And this is one of the things that the foundation supports, so we're very grateful for that. This is the one I accidentally skipped ahead to, which is that we connect people with other people's expertise. So in some cases, for example, we bring experts to the library to share their topics, their expertise, everything from drought-tolerant gardening to mosquitoes to wildfire and coyote risks to signs and symptoms of mental illness. These are cases where we have brought these folks, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to forward the slide, brought these folks to gatherings where the public can interact and get information from them. We also connect experts with the community in other ways. We facilitate speakers for service groups such as Rotary and Kiwanis, where we actually find them, the people to come to the meetings and share about their services. And then we do this in other ways too, in that we provide the kits for the public to go and have those experiences themselves, and build sort of their own expertise and their own experiences, like the stargazing and hiking and science kits as well. We're still working here on the list of being nearby. This is one of the aspects of library services that we do well, this idea of being proximal to our community. One of the big things, of course, is our building. Our building is a big instrument in terms of bringing the public together nearby the world of ideas, nearby each other, where they can grow and explore that world of ideas. A couple of things off of this list that I wanted to highlight are that we are standardizing some of the information available and some of the access to the city meeting rooms. So that's just easier for people to navigate when they are looking for spaces to come and gather themselves, in addition to coming for our own programs. And also just a tip of the cap to the foundation for replacing those early learning or AWE computers in the children's room. More nearby-ness, so to speak, again, about our wonderful more and more flexible, and we're working on updating the spaces for the community in our bricks and mortar building, of course, not knowing its next steps structurally. A couple of things I wanted to point out on this list, that there's sort of the comforts that we are offering for the public. We now have bottle refill stations with our drinking fountains, and we are still chipping away at making sure that the HVAC system is up and running so that the environment is more comfortable inside, as our temperatures outside fluctuate more and more and more as time goes on. Continuing on that line with our gathering spaces, a few things that happened behind the scenes. We did update the staff lounge in support of our, expert staff. And also we continue to both train the staff in safety, but also participate and house safety activities such as the EOC actual, the practice activations, and then we also had participants in the virtual activation of the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, during the bridge fire. Okay, so lots happening in terms of making sure our community is nearby to the world of ideas. No matter how nearby you are, there are certain skills that are required to be able to navigate the world of ideas. Some of the most basic, of course, one of the most basic is alphabetic literacy. There are lots of different kinds of literacy, and they happen throughout life. So basically, we just say every age needs access to ideas to develop those so that they can learn new ideas in the next age. It's lifelong human development. So this is another area where we have pretty robust services. As a regular practice, we develop reading habits and skills, or encourage them. We practice print awareness and motivation, or the public does because of our services, I should say. We offer the opportunity for the public to interact with stories and details. They explore plot and genre and story sequencing. I mean, all of these are things about reading literacies. And I just wanted to point out the last statistic on this list. 7 months of story time, over 6,500 participants. That's some pretty great reach right there. Also, so moving beyond that kind of literacy, there's also other kinds: critical thinking, problem solving, just generally encouraging creativity. So we hit a lot of different kinds of activities this way. One of our biggest is in partnership with, among others, the department formerly known as Community Services or Recreation and Human Services, the Gingerbread House, which drew in 500 this year, and has a lot to do with that, encouraging creativity. There's a lot of fine motor control involved in those activities. And another one that where we combined sort of a literacy of emergency preparedness with a lot of fun was the zombie apocalypse emergency preparedness program. Okay, more ways that we develop skills all lifetime long. There's a lot we offer specifically to teens, developing their customer service skills, their leadership, their team building, communication, public speaking. All of these are different kinds, in a way, of different kinds of literacies, if you will. And everything from the Battle of the Books to the Idea Lab to the Summer Discovery Challenge volunteers, the Youth Advisory Board, after hours events. And of course, some of these groups help plan some of these other events, and it's a wonderful regenerative kind of cycle here. Service, the opportunities for teens. Okay, so ideas are nearby, and we are developing the skills to be able to interact with them. But everybody is different, and no matter how many skills you build, if depending on your physiology or your neurology, you may have challenges in accessing the world of ideas, and we want to make sure that we're working on making sure that that access is equitable. So some of the things that we have been doing this since July, a lot of it's been training related, which will lead then to implementing some actual improvements in services. I think one of the big ones that we learned about the first 6 months of the year was how to serve people with hearing impairments, and we're looking into how we can improve our facilities and programming to help that happen. Okay. So switching sort of from the human side, where we need to be nearby the ideas and learn how to use them and make sure that everybody's physiologies and neurologies are addressed, now on the data side. And one thing about the data or the information is that basically packages and decay. And we need to make sure that ideas don't go extinct just because their packages do. So that's another area that we are working on. This is the idea that the world of ideas needs to be enduring for our public. A big hit here since July is the additions to the already existing community archive. And the big one this year is Glendora newspapers published before 1962. This is a thing that's going to be unrolled in phases. The other part of this that's not specifically listed on these bullet points, because we're trying to keep it light and readable, is of course that we are meeting with other agencies in town that work on Glendora history and are trying to make sure that their resources, as well as the libraries, as well as the community's own resources, are eventually represented in these platforms. Okay, so the packaging decays. The data themselves also just randomize over time, right? Chaos is, the direction that things go in the universe. And so we need to help keep the world of ideas organized for our public. So a few of the things we've done here. Interestingly, an interesting way to think about geographic information systems, or basically information supplied through maps, is that is a way of organizing data, right? If you have information about Glendora, you can integrate it with the map, and it's a totally different way of accessing those ideas. So the newest one of those is that since July has been the driving tour of Glendora's community art. So instead of just reading about it or clicking through web pages on it, this is something that people can go out and experience actually in the community or through the map interface. We also are looking at ways to make the interfaces that the public uses for the world of ideas more efficient. So we upgraded our integrated library system, which that system touches almost everything we do, including the online computer catalog. We upgraded that, and also are looking at shifting some of our staff time to more local focus by experimenting with purchasing materials that are already shelf-ready and are already labeled and packaged to go out on the shelf, so that we're not spending our local expertise just basically doing physical processing of materials. We're starting to experiment with that. And we were part of a citywide initiative to launch the new city website in December. Another way that we are organizing information is specifically related to volunteers. We'll have an unveiling of this volunteer match, what we're calling geo-focused website this spring. It is a way for people to come and browse either long-term or one-and-done kinds of volunteer opportunities in and around the Glendora area. It's kind of a 24/7 volunteer fair, if you will. Also, our staff itself, the experts that we have on staff, are a huge part of organizing the world of ideas. The very fact that we have people who know how to find answers to things are a big part of this particular duty that we have to the public. And as part of supporting that staff, I just wanted to mention that with regard to the classification study we have, they have provided the job descriptions that the consultant signed off on. They have provided their job descriptions to the city. Those were based on my comments to them, and now we're working on a final content check of those before we move to next steps. So that is moving forward, I'm happy to say. So another thing about data are that they are subject to influence, right? They can be skewed, they can be perceived in different ways, they can be accurate or inaccurate. And so one of the things we do is we try to make the world of ideas contextual so that people have the ability to understand what's authoritative, what might be influencing the information and the ideas that they're working with. Again, a huge part of that are our expert staff, and some of the things that they do are to provide expert information, not just instruct how to do it, but actually provide the authoritative information themselves. So they help do that for some city departmental work and also for the Friends Foundation for the Great Trivia Challenge in the last few months. And then there's some other ways that we provide access to accurate information. One of them is sort of this myth-busting kind of approach, which was an example of that was our plant poaching program. That's really hard to say, plant poaching program. And another way that I think is really interesting, I appreciate that the staff tucked this in here, is these citizen science kits, because this is a way for the public not only to learn from authoritative science sources, like do science experiments, but they actually then contribute back to the authority of those data. And I think that's, again, a pretty wonderful sort of ecosystem there. Another thing about the data themselves, they have value. They can be owned, they can be stolen, they can be made available, they can be suppressed. So just like any other kind of property, they have value, and we need to make sure that it's both protected when it needs to be and made accessible when it needs to be. So how have we been doing this? Well, we've been doing it through some education. The IT director for Glendora came and talked with library staff about data protection. We have information about it in our lobby, and one of our managers also went to some training on how laws and legislation impact books and how that interacts with efforts to suppress information. And finally, all taken together, we recognize that just like anything else, ideas need resources. The easiest and most obvious thing, of course, are our traditional books, which have long time required paper and therefore trees, but that's true of any format of information. It requires some kinds of resources. And so from our little corner of the world, we are trying to be as aware of this as we can. In the last few months, our most significant thing here is that based on some staff feedback from the California Library Association conference, we have some new leads on how to reuse some of our library materials that are no longer being used on our shelves. The companies and vendors that assist with that kind of come and go, and we are hoping to find a new home for some of those materials and get them a second or third or fourth or fifth life. Always, we conclude with administration here. This is just about clearing the way so all of that other stuff can happen. And of course, one of the things we did, and this touches really on all of our responsibilities, was that we, enhanced the public's access to expert help from the staff by sending everybody to the California Library Association conference earlier this fiscal year. Also, our work with the marketing consultant that the city has been using is another way that we make sure the public is able to connect with all of these opportunities. Because if they can't discover that they exist, then they can't take advantage of them. So that's, again, just since July, what we consider to be some of our wins, organized as opposed to the way the budget is shaped. This is in terms of what we see, how we see the world of ideas sort of being structured. And we're happy, any of us, to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Okay.
I just have a general question about this report. Out of curiosity, how are these themes generated? Like, I know we've been using these themes since I've been on the board, but I just wondered how these themes started.
So they started at a library. Well, they started as a thought process, but they started officially in terms of the library board at a library board meeting. They were brought to the library board as an example of the kind of thought that we hoped to get from a strategic planning consultant. And in response to that report, the library board at the time said, actually, we think this is your framework.
I see.
And so they basically adopted this as the way to proceed forward.
Got it. Okay. And do you know how long ago that was?
I can double check on that for you, but I believe
you don't know
it
off
was-
the top
I
of
believe
your
it was
head, that's fine.
2018.
Okay. Okay.
And I want to say that they are, one of the reasons that we pursued them is because traditional strategic plans, are like 1, 3, 5 years. And the idea with these was that these 8 things will be true 10 years from now and 50 years from now. Depending on what science fiction writers you talk to. So we can continue to do smaller targeted service strengthening within any of these areas without having to completely rewrite our whole outlook on
Right,
everything. It's
right.
intended to be an enduring
Right.
thing. So.
And have you guys, since 2018, found these themes to be helpful in helping strategize what the library does?
I'm happy to weigh in on that. I don't know if anybody from the management team, but you're welcome to say anything if you would like.
I think that's coming from you.
So, if anybody else, be sure to pop up. So my observation is that what it really sort of holds our feet to the fire on are the things that we don't automatically do well. So we had a long history of being able to bring people together and of being able to basically kind of educate them. But what we hadn't really touched on with regularity and kept on our radar was all that other stuff. The things, we would touch on it every once in a while, but we really didn't regularly look at how to serve different physiologies and neurologies. We didn't regularly look at sort of the collection development policy itself, in other words, how we buy books, is a tool of context and value. It talks about making sure that the information is authoritative. But in terms of how to teach those skills to the public and how to make sure that was sort of its own service to the public, the idea of serving the public in the most authoritative ways, we really didn't formalize that regularly. And so there were a lot of these things that I think are central to public library services. And in fact, if you look at the the divisions and the interest groups of the major associations, they touch on these things, and we really didn't have a habit of doing that. So as hard as some of them are, what this does is it keeps us sort of accountable for seeking ways to provide those dimensions of our service that when we really had only focused on those first two for so long.
I see. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I always think that these themes are always very important and see them necessary to the library. I don't know what my overall consensus of it is, thoughts on it of right now, but yeah, I was just curious. Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
always happy to talk through it, rethink it. It's they've stayed. There were, I think there were 11 when it first started. So they do distill. They've stayed stable for a while. And I had one library administrator from another agency comment. She said, "Wow." She said, "I looked through it," and she said, "It seemed like a lot." She said, but she said 8, and then she said, "But I tried to take some of them away," and she said, she said, "I couldn't figure out which ones to take away." So anyway, it's maybe future generations of library administration will find a way to conceptualize them in different groupings. But so far, I think they've done. I think they've really helped us keep in mind some of the things that we hadn't been pursuing for a while.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tomoko?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, Brianna, because I was always curious about it too, right? But I always just thought it was your ideas, Janet. But
I was the one that
Yeah.
that brought them to the board that time,
yeah,
and not expecting, honestly, not expecting them to adopt them. So that was a bit of a surprise
Yeah.
back then.
no, but the way the library handled the COVID situation and then coming out of the COVID situation, I can see how these guidelines, I don't know the right word for it, really helped in all of that. So no, I think it's great. Thank you.
I have a question. So in looking at your presentation, there's so many layers and layers and layers of programming. You have virtual, you have in person, you have different disciplines, you have different ages. Do you have a matrix? How do you keep track of how many programs for what age category, which modality, when is it going to be presented? Do you have a system for that, or it's just kind of like evolved naturally over time?
Do you mean before they happen or keeping track of them after they happen?
Well, you have things for babies, you have things for the elderly, you have things online, offline. How do you keep track of your programming? Like, do we have enough programs in place for babies? Do we have enough programs in place for young school-age people? Do we, right? I can see you have a lot of programming, but how do you physically figure out, like, where your programs go and any gaps that there may be in your programming? Or cycling things out of programming that wasn't as successful as you anticipated, and maybe amplifying other programs that were very successful and you want to carry them further.
Again, I could speak to that, but I don't. So Library Services Manager Cindy Romero.
Here comes Cindy.
So the after actually is real easy. We've got a massive spreadsheet that tracks all of the programs with a lot of the details that are required of us for the state survey and some
Okay.
of the reporting out that we do. So the after, super easy. And then, at a glance, we can see, okay, well, we've had, this many programs for young children, this many programs for adults, this many family programs. So that's super easy. As far as the trying to plan what it's going to happen, I think the Summer Discovery Challenge is the easiest, visual for it. We know that there's going to be an 8-week program. We know that we need services and programs for readers of all ages, so infants and toddlers all the way up through seniors. And so then looking at it to make sure that the overall program design meets the needs of all of those people. So we know that the young children need to read a certain amount of time to maintain and build their reading skills. Meanwhile, some of our seniors need to read a designated amount of time to keep their mental acuity. Different reasons, but still, some of that comes out looking similar. And so the team sits down and says, okay, well, how do we accomplish both of those things? Or do we need to split it up and do, something slightly different for the younger kids, something slightly different for seniors? And then looking at community needs, community interests. Where do the interests in the community lie? We've known over the years that Glendora really enjoys programs about space. I mean, the JPL speaker series that we had previously, when they had JPL themselves had a very robust speakers bureau that would come out. Those were some of our well-attended programs. The programs that we've had recently about space and the telescopes, they're well-attended. Glendora really seems to enjoy the programs about space. Some of the other programs, maybe not so much. And so some of it is a trial and error for what it is that we know Glendora is going to respond to and come to, because, we don't want to throw a party for no one. And sometimes those opportunities, making them available is enough, but most of the time it's not. But then also focusing in some of those other responsibilities, and how do we provide programs that are going to be the Mythbuster programs, like the recent one on the plant poaching. Haha, I did it. Yeah, I left out the last P. Just because until we launched that program, I didn't know anything about plant poaching. And then, as we started to get into it, we realized what a huge problem this is in Southern California itself and worldwide. And so how do we then fold that into our programming to kind of help everyone with their lifelong learning and learning how to evaluate information? And so some of it is as we go, some of it is a larger thing. It's just kind of works.
Thank you.
And Janet holds me to the fire when I have too many children's programs.
I don't think it's ever too many children's. I think it's,
Not enough, yeah.
yeah, it's the other way around. So I thought I heard, almost came out of your mouth the word matrix. Did you? So.
Yeah. Didn't I say Matrix?
Yeah. So there's smiles over there because I have a matrix brain. It makes them crazy. And so we are constantly looking at our services juxtaposed this way. And then we will turn them on their side and say, okay, that's great. We seem to be hitting all of these. How about cutting across them this way and making sure we're serving all of these needs? And and so you like you said, there are so many different components. There's you can divide it into online and person. You can divide it into inside the library and out in the community. You can divide it by age group. You can divide it, and so we really have found that the core are making sure we are addressing these 8 responsibilities, and then we try to pick all of those different modalities for the best way to deliver that particular thing. Like if we need to hit this audience because we sense that there's a gap here, is that best done in the library building? Maybe not. Maybe that's something that needs to happen, off-site at some other location where that group is already meeting on their own to do something else. And it's we're still in a learning process of stopping to answer those questions and to say, okay, maybe the reason so few people came when we know this is a community need is because we were just in the wrong place. And then that changes that modality, and we have, a different access that we're looking at. So yes, there are, whether they are invisible or not, there are lots of matrices, yes.
Major work. So much work. Okay, so are we on 4, right? No, 5. Are we with Donna now? Okay. So at this time, I would like to invite Library Services Manager Donna Dukes to share out.
Hi, good evening. So I will be talking to you tonight about kind of our results of our overdue fee-free. So as you know, in July of 2023, we did go overdue fee-free. So eliminating fines for any overdue materials. And we did present you with a report shortly after that, I believe within 3 months or so, with some stats. But we wanted to give you one today to kind of show you the results over a longer period of time. So what we did was we took a couple of questions that came up throughout the evaluation process of whether we should go overdue fee-free. Some of the things that came up, we took a couple of those concepts and answered those questions for you then versus now. So the first question was, will people continue to bring their items back? That was one of the concerns that came up. So in the beginning of July 2023, which is when we first went overdue fee-free, for every 1,000 items in the collection, 5 were more than 28 days overdue, which is what we consider long overdue. So then the beginning of July 2024, for every 1,000 items in the collection, 7 were more than 28 days overdue. So yes, it did increase slightly, but given the statistical significance is not that great. So our next question was, will there still be enough items to check out? So beginning of July 2023, for every 10,000 items in the collection, about 8,500 were available, so about 85% of the collection. Beginning of July 2024, for every 10,000 items, 8,471 were available, so 84.7%. So that kind of remained the same. Will people still get popular items as fast? So from July 2022 to June 2023, it took us about 16 days to fill a hold. So if someone requested an item that wasn't on the shelf, it took us about 16 days to get that item to the patron. July 23 to June 24, it took us about 12 and a half days. So it actually decreased the amount of time it took us to get the item to our customers. Might this encourage people to use the library's content? So beginning of July 2023, there were 1,744 accounts that had items checked out. Beginning of July 2024, 2,240. So we actually did see an increase in the number of accounts that were able to check out items. So those are some of the stats. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Of the people who, so prior to July 2023, of the people who had like I don't know what you call it, like a lock, like they were banned from checking out any more books because they had overdue ones, and then we relieved them from those, did we see those accounts go back and check out books?
So I couldn't tell you statistically because we can only run numbers, right? So it's not like, but I can tell you from staff stories after we went overdue fine-free of a couple of instances where our customers have come in and relayed to staff, that they had blocked accounts and that they were appreciative of being able to,
that's awesome.
check out materials now that their accounts were not blocked.
That's awesome. That's great. And then the standard checkout, so it's 3 weeks, right?
Yep.
So you have 21
Well,
days.
most items, yeah.
Most, yeah. And then, so is there any reason, so 28 days is long overdue and 21 days is, okay. I'm just wondering, is
So
there?
they're also, items, as long as they're not new or they're not, someone is not waiting for them, they also have the option to renew
extend.
them an additional time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
So moving to consent calendar, items 6 through 8. Items on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion without individual discussion unless a trustee has requested it to be removed for a separate discussion. Does anyone wish to pull or comment on any consent calendar items?
I motion to approve all those items.
I second the motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, so we're moving on to the review of the role of the Glendora Board of Library Trustees. And I would like to invite Library Director Janet Stone to report.
Thank you once again. The role of the Glendora Board of Library Trustees is indeed a document, and it is traditionally presented as additional information when the board does its goal-setting process on those occasions over the years when we have reviewed the bylaws and that sort of thing. So it gives that kind of context for what the board does. And every 2 to 5 fiscal years or so, we review it separately from the goal-setting process or from the bylaws reviews, just to make sure that the roles of the board are described in ways that the board feels are appropriate. So a couple of the recent times we did this in fiscal year 17-18, at that time, a subcommittee was created, and that happened in August, and then eventually the final revisions came to the board in November. And then more recently, in fiscal year 22-23, basically what happened was that the change was made to the title to make it consistent, and it was approved as submitted. So there's no standard approach to this. So basically, this evening, we are recommending that you review the document and discuss it as you choose, and then if you choose to update it, that you establish a process for doing so as needed. And I will turn it over to you.
Tomoko.
Yep, I think this has been helpful for when we have to go over our own personal reviews, right, of ourselves. I don't see anything that would need to be changed unless you do, but I would say we would just accept it as it is and stick to the review every 2 years.
I also agree. I don't think there's anything on here that we would need to change. But I think I do want to emphasize for myself and everyone else that maybe we can all be more proactive about going to some of the library programs. I mean, I don't, and obviously keeping in mind the Brown Act, and I don't know which ones that you guys go to, but I think this is something that every year comes up on my when I do my self-evaluation. This is the one that I really want to improve on a lot. And I mean, I have a busy schedule, everyone else has a busy schedule, so I understand, but I think I just wanted to bring this point to everyone's attention that we should collectively put in more effort to go to more library programs. Yeah.
I would say that's the fun part.
Well said, and I agree. Thanks.
The only clarification that I might suggest is there be some sort of addition to to stipulate, to kind of like be more specific instead of saying like, serves as an advocate in the greater community, participates in library programs. What does that exactly look like?
I think the participation in library programs is like attending things outside of like the Friends Foundation stuff. So going to story time, going to like the space event, like the JPL speakers, going to like, I mean, we all go to Battle of the Books for the most part, but like going to things outside of just like the main events that they always see the trustees at. I think it's like I've gone to like the stuffed animal ones, and that's pretty cool, or like the overnight ones, seeing the kids like run around the library, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, and just seeing like how they make their core group of friends there, and they like all know each other through the library, which I think is awesome. And I remember making friends through the library that way too. But just seeing the happiness there, I think it makes my heart warm. But I also think that as trustees, just to see exactly what the programming is like, and then that way we can offer more feedback if we think there should be any. But yeah, I think it's fine the way it is. I mean, at least to me, it seems pretty, yeah. I understand that sentence.
Any further comments or questions? So I would like to request a motion to approve.
I would like to approve the role of the Glendora Board of Library Trustees document.
Was the first motion made by President Johnson?
It
and
was-
seconded?
Erica was first.
I'll second.
Okay.
Motion carries 4-0.
And any further closing comments?
May I make one, please?
Yes, please.
I won't be as eloquent as he deserves, but Gordon Norman passed away recently. We all know Gordy, right? There's so many things that can be said about him. He's made so many contributions to the city of Glendora. Band director for Glendora High. Mocha, Japan, being our sister city, is because of his work. He was Santa Claus at Glendora Country Club for many years. So he was a good friend. He's with his wife, Diane, now, and he will be very, very missed. That's all.
And on that note, I would like to move to adjourn the meeting at 8:13 p.m.